So this is Quilt Libre, and the initial screen shows all of the quilts that you have made. Um, the You can create a new quilt with this button in the bottom right-hand corner here. And let's make a quilt in inches. We'll make a quilt that's 60 inches by 30 inches. And the grid, we want to have it be 4 inches. So there's our quilt. So each of these grids represents 4 inches. Um, you can switch between two modes. This is for adding new pieces, and this is for selecting existing pieces. So let's create a piece here. And you do that by clicking on the vertices. Once you've closed out a piece, it takes away the corners that that I was illustrating before, and we can go into selection mode and select that piece, and that allows you to modify a piece that you've created. There are two kinds of grommets or grabbers that are handles that are shown. These square ones represent the corners, and then these round ones are halfway between the corners. And those round ones can be used for a couple different purposes. One is that if you grab it, press down and drag it, you can put a curve into the edge that's between those two corners. It'll snap to being straight. So if you want to put it back to straight, it'll snap into there. But let's perhaps leave it a bit curved right now. Another thing you can do is if you've changed your mind about how many corners you need, you can take one of these round handles and double click on it, and that will split that edge into two new edges. So now we can grab this corner one here and move it out there. And as you can see, we now have these two edges with an extra corner there. And then we have the new round handles as well if you want to curve those edges as well. Once a piece has been selected, so let's just, you can unselect it by just clicking somewhere else on the quilt or away off the quilt. But if we select it again, you can also rotate the selection. So by default, it rotates 90 degrees. You can modify that elsewhere. I'll talk about that. But you can rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise. You can also flip it about its midpoint, so we can have it point the other way. And same with up and down, of course. Well, let's do this. Let's bring this back in here and bring that one back in there. If we can, over here is the set of fabrics that exist for the quilt. So let's make a new one. We'll add a fabric, and it defaults to gray here, but we'll select a new color, and it lets you choose on this color thing here, and you can kind of choose off the sidebar or off any of the colors in here. So let's pick a blue one here. If we want a darker blue, then we can choose it down in here, or a lighter blue. We can reduce the brightness of the selection that way. So it used to be, this will be a sample of the color in the top there. So we can say okay, and it automatically named it to dark blue. It defines a thing called the bolt width. That's used later on for determining how much of each fabric you need. So it determines the length on the bolt that you need for this fabric. So if this bolt is 42 inches wide and we need, so it'll try and fit the pieces onto that 42-inch bolt and tell you how much of that bolt you need. But for now, we can just say okay. It changed that one because it had been selected back to blue, but let's change that back to red for now. And then let's go in and add a blue fabric. So I went into the add a piece mode, and then I selected the blue fabric, and there's now a blue piece. So one of the common things to do with a quilt is to make blocks and compose your quilt full of blocks. So the way you do that is you select a couple of pieces that constitute the block. So we have this block here, and up in here is the create block button. So we just click that, and you'll notice now the corner handles have turned gray. That's because you can't resize a block on the quilt. The block has now been fixed. But what you can do is come over here into block mode. If you select the block over here, it'll put it on the clipboard. So now if we ever whatever's on the clipboard over here, if you hit this paste button, we'll draw that up on the screen, and then you can drag it to where you want it. And you can, another way to do something similar is instead of pasting that one block, we can grab these two blocks and copy those. So now you see on the clipboard on the right there, it shows the two that have been selected. And if we paste that, we get now a pair of them. And so we can perhaps, fill out the quilt pretty easily this way. Over time, I'll add an automatic fill operation, but I don't have that right now. We can start the selection off the screen just to make sure that we get all the blocks that we're looking for, and maybe we can even copy those and paste that. So now we're doing 4 at a time, and then we can do another paste and another paste. Whoa. So those are going to be too big, but let's see, what shall I do about that? So we'll come in here. I'm going to get rid of this one here. So I select that one element, and then I hit the delete button. Let's go back in and grab these 3 at least. And maybe what we'll do is, well, I'll just do it that way for now. And let's copy just those 3 and paste those. So let's see, with a block, so this is a block. This one here, we can rotate that within there to create some asymmetry in our quilt, or we could make more exotic blocks as well, but we'll just do that for now. Another thing you can do with a block is, so once we have a block, we can ask to print that block, and what that'll show is it'll make a pattern that you can send to your printer that you can print out, and it's got the seam allowance and shows the block that you asked to have made.